Hi, I am so pleased and honored to have an opportunity to present to you my friend, Don Liu. Yeah, I say that with pride. Don is a fantastic guy, a great human being, and listen, a excellent, outstanding attorney, but he's more than that. And that's why we want to bring him to you and to learn from him perspectives and experiences that I think are very important and hard to obtain. Let me just tell you that, as you know, Don is the Executive Vice President and Chief Legal and Risk Officer for Target, which is the seventh largest employer in the nation, 500,000 employees. He has had an outstanding career with tremendous recognition as an attorney, really top in his field and going beyond being a lawyer. He started as a lawyer. He's been a corporate lawyer. He's been at the top of the food chain there, and he's gone beyond that, and we're going to hear about that. But he has been Executive Vice President, General Counsel, and Secretary for Xerox Corporation. He's held in-house legal leadership roles at Toll Brothers, Icon Office Solutions, and Aetna US Healthcare. He's been honored in periodicals like the National Law Journal, recognized with awards, and he sits on the board of Haverford College, and many other outstanding entities. I just want to let you know that Don, to describe it this way, he made $8 million last year, $8 million last year, just to get a sense of who he is and what he does and why we are talking with him right now. He manages directly 500 people, just so that you know that he's got a very significant role. He's on the board of Target. And with that, let me welcome and thank for sharing with us his time, Don Liu. Don, thank you so much.
David, it's great to be here. It's so good to see my old friend on Zoom call. I wish I could be live there in my hometown. So just to address compensation point, which is not something that I like to dwell on. If you calculate that based on the number of hours I work a year, it's not that much on a per hour basis. I just want you to know.
I disagree with you. $8 million a year. I don't care how many hours in the year, man. That's a lot of money. But listen, I think what's also important is that money is not free, and nobody's making $8 million and sitting on the couch. First of all, could you briefly tell people what it is that you do for Target?
Yeah. So as you said, I manage about 500 people. One of the areas that I'm responsible for is obviously legal, which is reflected in my title. But actually, that's only about a third of what I do. So I manage a large number of lawyers who do all kinds of different areas of law work. It's a little bit like managing a law firm in that way. But the other 2/3, I actually spend time doing non-legal work, and they range from corporate security to keep our employees safe. And it's been challenging in the last couple of years, as you can imagine, particularly. It also entails defending our reputation. So we get challenged by politicians as yourselves on some of the things we do or don't do. Should we engage in every controversial policy issue? Should we not have any say in it because we're not competent to talk about it? Those are some of the issues that my team works on to determine whether Target should engage in topics. We've been very involved in immigration issue. Many of our 500,000 employees are immigrants. We are pro-immigrant company. So therefore, we do engage in immigration issues. So those are policy issues that we decided to weigh in and take some bruises along the way if need be, if we wind up taking a position on controversial issues. And then the third area is really keeping our overall company compliant, and it's called compliance function. It's basically to make sure that our stores are run in a way that we should, not just with the laws, but with our own internal values and principles. The way we treat our own employees, the way we treat our customers, et cetera. Should we have a mask on, and how rigorously should we impose the mask in our store? Again, those are controversial issues. Somebody has to make some decisions, and my team does that.
Let me ask you this. I mean, when we see someone in the NBA, we know how they got there. And we could look at their stats and we could look at who they are and how they fit in the team. And we understand why they're making that much money and why they're important to the team. In the case of an attorney, I mean, we got a lot of good attorneys out there, and we got some questionable attorneys, and there's a lot of people out there. But what is the pathway that you traveled in order to distinguish yourself to the extent that Target said, we want this guy?
Thank you. It's a difficult question, and one that said, that I have said, it's more luck than talent. Let me explain that, because it sounds flippant if you...
It sounds honest, Don, because
Right.
I'll just tell you that whenever someone says something like this, I'm always delighted because truth is going to be shared.
Yeah. So the reason I say it's less talent, it's because there's no way I could have predicted I would be sitting where I am at the beginning of my career. I didn't know what it was, actually. I didn't know what a general counsel was. I didn't know what chief legal officer is. I didn't know what it was like to work for a Fortune 30 company, seventh largest employer in the country. So to say that I developed certain talent to get here is to be totally inaccurate, in that there's no way I could have predicted my path. So it's luck, because I got to a position I never knew that existed, and I got here somewhat unplanned. As I said, I work hard. The long hours are reflected in my personal life, or lack thereof. But a lot of people work hard. I think there are many people who work really hard and don't always get to top of a pyramid. So in my case, it was a combination of really lucky situation where the opportunities presented to me, and my reaction most of the time is, I'm totally unqualified for that job, but maybe I should explore to see what is it about me that I can contribute. So let's take the Target example. A Midwest company, an area of the country I had never lived in before. You know this on a personal level, maybe the audience doesn't. I grew up in Philly. I grew up in Cherry Hill, West Philly, when we first arrived, where my family attended David O's father's church at the very beginning, like many of us did in the 70s. And my view of the world was small business that my parents owned. I wanted to be a lawyer someday, maybe to represent many of the Asian family-owned businesses who really were often disadvantaged because they didn't speak the language, they didn't understand the business culture, and they didn't understand the laws. From that to being selected by a Midwest company in retail, which I have very little experience in, to come here to a territory I'm so unfamiliar with, was a big leap. They liked my background because they liked what I stood for. And if you look me up on the internet, you'll see mostly some of the Asian American community work that I have done. And they wanted an executive that stood for more than just focusing on my profession, but also the larger world and the needs of the larger world that I felt compelled to address. So that helped. So my image, my brand was really a big plus for Target because it was consistent with the corporate values of Target. We give away 5% of our profits every year, good years and bad years. Virtually no company I know has done that for 50 years that we've done. So marriage of values. The second thing is, it absolutely helped that I bring diversity to our corporate management team. There was a time when there were 2 Korean Americans who had C-suite at Target. My good friend Min Suk now left to go join another company. But to have 2 Korean Americans who were direct reports to the CEO, that's 20% of the population of direct reports to the CEO who are Korean Americans. That's unusual. But Target values diversity, and they found my background interesting. They loved my immigrant story. It says a lot about ethics and values, etc. Again, the marriage of Target corporate values with my personal value. And maybe the third thing that has something to do with why I got hired is I'm probably an individual on a personal level that probably breaks some of the stereotypes about Asian Americans. I'm blunt, direct, and at times confrontational. And I'm not like that all the time, but when there is a need for confrontation, I will not shy away from it. And I think it has helped me in a number of settings, including my role as a leader of the company.
When I think of your public image, and not as someone who knows you, but when I think about what I've read about you and when you've been featured and things like that, I think of a guy who is very sharp, very detail oriented, and very direct and clear. Not a rude person, not a shy person, not a confrontational person even, just a guy that is very straightforward, very clear without ambiguity, and on top of his game. He knows the work, he knows where he stands. That to me is the image that you cut professionally.
David, I think you're being kind to me, actually.
No, I'm actually not flattering you. I'm asking you, you think that image is the image that Target wanted?
Yes, I think that is the image that they had of me. But at times, it's not as kind. So for example, let's lay on the stereotype against Asian Americans as being mild, meek, and non-confrontational, right? When somebody says, Don, do you like this? And I go, no. That can sound confrontational when I don't mean to. As you said, I'm just answering the question, right? Do you like my idea? Do you like my proposal? And the answer is no. Some people will get offended by that. Some people will say, well, that was not very nice. Maybe it should have led with, it's a great idea. I really think it's got some possibilities, but have you thought about it? And my answer is typically that I'm just putting perfume on a pig here. I don't want to do that. You ask me a direct question, I'm going to tell you if I like it or not. And if I don't like it, I'm going to just tell you no.
As a Korean American, as an Asian American, certainly, your persona and your personality as a unique individual has arisen when you have been confronted with competitive people who want to put you down, people who want to backbite you, people who want to smear you. And listen, we all have kind of faced that, but you have faced it in a way many of us will not understand because, you're at a competitive level, is a very high level in the corporate world. Can you share a little bit with us about some of the battles you've had, how they played out, and what is how do you handle these type of things?
So you're alluding to the stereotype of model minority, perpetual foreigner that just about every Asian American faces in the corporate world or in any profession, right? And there are a lot of downsides. And some people might even challenge, say, what is wrong with being considered model minority? The fact is, the minority myth comes with a lot of baggage that is not reflective of the truth. I'll tell you something that happened earlier in my career. I was working for a large Wall Street law firm. I thought I had the job of my life. And um, I don't know, roughly 80,000 bucks a year I was making. I thought I was more money than I could ever imagine any human being should be allowed to make. And one day I was put on a mega deal. And at the law firm, we were big in mergers and acquisitions. So we were working on a major acquisition, which is a kind of considered a juicy role to have. So my senior associate came to me and said, the head of corporate department wants you to be on that deal now. And I said, great. So I worked on the deal. About a week into the deal, I'm working day and night on the deal. I asked my manager, my senior associate, why did the head of the corporate department ask you to have me on this deal? And I was hoping like the guy's really bright, creative. I think you can really rely upon him to do a fantastic job. That wasn't the answer. Disappointingly, the answer was get Liu on this deal because he will never miss a typo. And I said, that's it, really? He just thought my contribution to the deal, multi-billion-dollar deal, is typos. That's what he said, man. I'm not going to tell you something he didn't say. I didn't know what bothered me about that comment when it was made. But later on in my life, a few years later, I figured out why it bothered me. Okay, first of all, the fact is, David, when you and I do emails today, you'll see full of typos. I'm actually lousy at typos.
Right.
I'm a big picture thinker. I think strategically. I'm impatient to get the message out, so I do it so quickly that it's full of typos. I guarantee you'll find typos. So he was wrong about me. Second of all, he put me in a box that says I'm an Asian American menial worker who's able to do the unimportant work, not the strategic work. That really bothered me because who gets to be the leader of any organization? Who goes into the C-suite unless you can think strategically, think creatively, think boldly? That's what I wanted to be known as. And somebody who doesn't miss a typo doesn't fit that mold. And I spent in my entire career trying to break that stereotype forced upon me.
Now, in retrospect, do you think that's the real reason you were brought on, or do you think that guy, maybe out of jealousy or control, instead of saying, yeah, because you're the sharpest, he said, oh, no, but you had menials. Do you think he was putting you down, or what do you think that was real, or what's your opinion?
The honest truth is, I don't know. I'll never know. Right. The level of jealousy and the competition and the backstabbing, which you allude to, it is real. That comes with the territory. And if you're unwilling to recognize and deal with it, then you're not going to wind up being able to compete in the race to the corporate ladder. And that's just the way it is. And you have to recognize it and live with it. And if you don't like it, that's okay. You just can't climb the corporate ladder then.
There are negative stereotypes about Asian Americans that have existed in this country since the gold rush. And they're surprisingly the same, whether it's from one group or the other group. And we're just talking about this before the call. So one of the things that strikes fear in the hearts of people is that Asian Americans can be like machines. They don't feel the cold. They don't feel hunger. They don't go to parties. They're just like workhorses. They're extremely competitive in that sense. And they give it a lot of negatives like selfish, un-American, not interested in democracy, single-mindedly ambitious, all that. But at the end of the day, I have seen that people sometimes react very defensively when they say, hey, here's an Asian American bright, sharp person on our team, and the team goes, uh-oh, here's a guy that don't know the culture of when we slow down, when we take it easy. Here's a foreigner who's going to just go, 100 miles an hour, 24/7, and we need to handle this dude right now. Has that ever happened to you?
Yes. You're describing what is known as the perpetual foreigner stereotype. It's Professor Frank Wu, who wrote a book called Yellow, Race in America Beyond Black and White. He has a whole chapter dedicated to the perpetual foreigner. You could be a Chinese American, fourth generation, fifth generation, whose great-great-grandparents laid the railroad tracks, whose family had been in the US longer than many of the European immigrants, and still be considered perpetual foreigner because of the way you look, not because of the way you are. And therefore, all the stereotypes of fresh off the boat, they cannot possibly understand any of the cultural norm that they expect from their leader or at least their colleague.
I think there's two choices in how people typically respond, and I'm interested in what you think about this. So a lot of young Asian Americans, young Koreans, they say, hey, that's not me. Let me go out and have a beer. Let me loosen my tie. Let me show them I'm not that workhorse guy. I'm not that threat. I'm just one of the fellas. And they reduce themselves to less performance than their potential. Other people, they say, well, you know what? I'm going to give it my all, regardless of these people, because they don't care for me. And I will, say goodbye on my way up the ladder. I don't know. What is your idea? Is there something different, or what is your perspective on that?
Really, I think a difficult question, because there are pitfalls to whichever path you choose. Giving up the latter path obviously was not a choice that was acceptable to me. I was not going to go down the path of, okay, forget the corporate ladder. I'm just going to go do the small business that my parents were doing. I think that would have disappointed my parents, frankly. Right. I've done a little bit of both, a little of many different things, depending upon the circumstances. Okay. So a good example, where are you from? A question that we hate, because we get singled out as Korean Americans, Asian Americans, with that question. I will not answer that question. I will say I'm from South Philly, or I'm from South Jersey, not South Philly. I'm from Philly.
Right.
And they will go, no, where are you really from? I go, I'm really from Philly. I'm a big Eagles fan. That's not what I'm in. I go, are you asking me? This is when I'm in a good mood. Are you asking for my nationality? Like you're Italian American, I'm Korean American. If that's the question.
Right.
On a bad mood, I will not answer that question. I'll just keep going until, oh, where am I from? Oh, I'm from my mother's womb, just like you.
Right.
Making a subtle point. Why are you asking me as if I'm differentiated? So right. I've picked a different circumstance, different people with different answers. There have been other times I've done exactly what you just said, which is to subtly show that I'm not as different as you think I am, as I look. So I'll talk about the Eagles. I'll talk about, oh my God, you see that game? What? I mean, we got to get rid of Jalen Hurts. We need a really thinking quarterback who's got some brain, okay? Or whatever it is, okay?
Right.
But that's usually not in the context of a confrontation against me for being a perpetual foreigner. That's really more well before that. I will make a point that says, I am a guy you can go out and have a beer with. Don't put me into that perpetual foreigner bucket. So I've done, in certain settings, a considerable amount of investment to make sure that that I'm relatable. I'm a human being, just like they are, and there's nothing that they cannot ask me and talk to me about.
Don, $1 million question. Are you happy?
I'm the luckiest man on earth. Just like many of us Korean Americans, my parents brought me and my two younger siblings to US and to Philly to essentially for our benefit, so that we can have great education and we can live financially well and to have a successful career. And both my parents have now passed away. But I am absolutely confident, because they have said so, that each of us, their three kids, exceeded beyond their wildest imagination what they had hoped for us. And from that perspective, I'm incredibly lucky. And I love my job. I love the influence that I can have on the larger community. You know, some of the things that I've done on anti-Asian hate that I've been able to influence because I sit in a position where I can make that kind of influence. So from combination of unbelievably happy career to happy personal life, I am the luckiest man on earth.
Oh, that's fantastic. Now, I'm just going to ask you, because with great happiness often comes great sacrifice. And I'm going to ask you for our audience, what level of sacrifice have you and do you make and yet are happy and successful and fulfilled? But what is that sacrifice? Is it a little sacrifice or is it a big sacrifice?
Yeah, I think I have made choices to figure out where my valuable time is going to be spent. And the sacrifice of those choices has been my family. My kids, two kids who turned out to be fine. They're 26 and 24. One's in law, one's in the investment bank. They turned out to be great kids. But I can tell you, I did not spend as much time with them as I should have or could have. They know that. We talk about it all the time now. I can't take those hours back. But if I am being absolutely honest, there was no way I could have spent enough time with my family and still achieve the professional goals and aspirations that I had. So therefore, I had to make some choices, and the choice was to spend less time with the family and more time with in the office. I wish it wasn't that way. I wish there were other ways to do it. I can't figure out how to do it. And when I mentor younger people, I say that all the time. Don't be naive. You're going to have to make some choices. How important is your career? And is your family willing to support you on that? In some ways, maybe not as good of an analogy, but that's how I grew up too as a kid. My mom and dad had a store. I remember that was open 24/7. My mom worked first 12 hours and my dad worked second 12 hours. I knew what it took to survive as an immigrant. I think I accepted that, and I respect my parents for the tough choices they made, all in the longer, in the spirit of longer term goals and success. And they did that for me. And I'm a beneficiary of those long hours that they spent in their business so that we can benefit from their work financially and otherwise. And I think I've made similar choices that my parents did.
Yeah, it causes me to think about, my parents and my father. He was not home. My mother was not home because they were at the church. And, but the thing that I came away with, at least in my case, and I hope for other people, is this. Though I did not spend that much time with my parents because they were always working, I was proud of them. I was proud of their sacrifice and the fact they were so committed to God and the church. And this is what they truly believed in. And I was just so proud of them as I am now. And I think the fact that I knew that they were answering a higher calling and setting an example for us and really concerned about us, it's not just the physical time spent with your children. It's what you do that your children feel the sacrifice and love for what you're doing for them. And I think, that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, hopefully I will set a good example. And you're right. Examples can be set by spending intimate amount of time at home with them. But the examples can also be set by what you do in the world, what you do for the larger community. And your father I can't tell you how many people benefited from what your father did through the church. My family's benefited from it. Many did. And I think that's what you mean by respect, and well-deserving of the respect. that you just described. And I had similar respect for my parents. And I hope, even though I might not have spent as many hours with my kids, they will view me in the same way that I viewed my parents.
Yes. Well, listen, I cannot thank you enough on behalf of all of our audience for sharing this time with us and being honest and truthful, which is why we invited you, because it's so valuable to share these insights that people are so rarely exposed to or get to see. So on behalf of all of us here, Don, thank you. Thank you so much. And we're wishing you the best in 2022, your family and everyone. Happy New Year.
David, thank you so much. It's my pleasure. It's my honor to be with you, with my hometown folks. I have a lot of respect for you, for what you do. I've always done that. And I wish you and your constituents continued success in the new year. And I hope you continue to do what you do well, which is to provide leadership.
Thank you. Thank you very much.